Giorgione. BCSDLFRNCO, c. 1477, B. Venice, 1510. Although Giorgione is one of the most important Venetian Renaissance painters, little is known about his life, and very few surviving paintings can definitely be attributed to him. Giorgione's work proved hugely influential. His Sleeping Venus, finished by Titian, established the tradition of the reclining nude, and his sensual portraits were much imitated by other artists. He was also one of the first painters to specialize in cabinet pictures, paintings made for private collectors. But perhaps Giorgione's biggest contribution was the moody, evocative depiction of the landscape and lyrical relationship between figures and nature. Lifeline. c. 1477, born in Castelfranco, c. 1490, probably studies under Giovanni Bellini. c. 1505, paints The Tempest, Cent. 1505-10, paints Sleeping Venus. 1507 to 2008, paints a canvas now lost for the audience chamber of the Doge's Palace. 1508, paints frescoes with Titian for German warehouse in Venice. Fragments survive. 1510, dies of the plague while in Venice. The Tempest. Although many have tried to interpret this work, the identity of the figures is uncertain. They may be Adam and Eve after being cast out of Eden. The real subject seems to be the landscape, brought alive by the dense, hazy atmosphere and stormy light. Giorgione also added a thunderbolt considered extremely difficult for a painter. c. 1505, oil on canvas, 82x 73 centimeters, Galleria dell'Accademia, Venice, Italy. Laura Yee's intriguing portrait was named in the 1600s after the laurel as a symbol of chastity and fidelity. But many critics believe the subject was a courtesan, because of her exposed breast and fur collar. c. 1506, oil and canvas, 41 by 34 centimeters, Kunsthistorisches Museum, Vienna, Austria. Titian. BP Diacodor, c. 1485-90, D. Venice, 1576. Titian was the greatest painter of the Venetian school. In a long and prolific career, he won the most prestigious commissions from the Habsburg court. Titian revolutionized every genre of painting that he worked in. His dramatic altarpieces have complex, innovative compositions. Famously, the Madonna and Child are placed off-center in the Pesaro altarpiece, 1519-26. His mythological paintings are exuberant and colorful, and celebrate erotic passion. His portraits present subjects actively, in a variety of poses and formats. One of the best shows Charles V mounted on his horse at the Battle of Mulberg. Lifeline. c. 1485, born Tiziano Vecellio, c. 1500-02, arrives in Venice and begins apprenticeship. 1511, paints first firmly dated pictures attributable to him, frescoes of 3 episodes of the life of Saint Anthony in the Scuola del Santo. 1533, made Knight of the Golden Spur by Charles V. 1538, paints one of his most celebrated works, Venus of Urbino. See pages 132-5. 1545, visits Rome and meets Michelangelo. 1548, travels to Augsburg to work for Charles V. 1576, disoffay for a while. Plague rages in Venice. His exact cause of death is unknown. Concert Champetre Titian, or Giorgione, or both may have painted this work. The description of the landscape, with its hazy atmosphere, seems to be Giorgione's, while the distinctive poses of the figures seem to be Titian. C. 1510, oil and canvas, 105 by 137 centimeters, Louvre, Paris, France. Sacred and profane love. The twin figures in this painting are now both thought to be Venus. The clothed figure represents earthly love. She holds a chalice of jewels, symbolizing fleeting happiness in this world. The nude figure represents celestial love. She holds a lamp, symbolizing eternal happiness in heaven. C. 1514, oil on canvas, 118 by 279 centimeters, Galleria Borghese, Rome, Italy. Closer look. Coat of arms. Titian made this painting for the marriage of Niccolo Aurelio, whose coat of arms appears on the sarcophagus. Landscape. The landscape shows the influence of Giorgione, but the rich colors and the vitality of the figures are typical of Titian. The Assumption of the Virgin has the grandeur and the awesomeness of Michelangelo, the pleasing beauty of Raphael, and the colors of nature itself. Lodovico Dolce, Venetian critic, 1557. The assumption of the Virgin, the animated figures, bold, luminous color, and dramatic tonal contrasts give this massive painting a turbulent intensity. The Virgin's twisting body adds to the dynamism. 1516-18, oil on panel, 690x 360 cm, Santa Maria Gloriosa dei Frari, Venice, Italy. Closer look. Dynamic composition. The earthbound apostles are contained within a rectangle at the bottom of the painting, while the Virgin and God make a loose circle at the top. While apostles in red, one of whom is reaching out, form a triangle, which pulls the viewer's eye up to the Virgin. Venus and Adonis. This scene is based on a story in Ovid's Metamorphoses. Venus is trying to stop Adonis going on a hunt that will end in a wild boar killing him. Cupid sleeps in the background, a symbol of Adonis' refusal of Venus's embrace. The pose of Venus is modeled on ancient prototypes, like Lo in Correggio's Jupiter and Lo, see page 124. But where Correggio's version is lyrical and sweet, Titian is vivid and dynamic. 1553, oil and canvas, 168 by 207 centimeters, Prado, Madrid, Spain. Venus of Urbino. Titian, c. 1538, oil on canvas, 119 by 165 centimeters, Uffizi, Florence, Italy. Closer look. Venus of Urbino. Titian. Venus of Urbino is one of the most celebrated and debated of Titian's paintings. It was commissioned by Guidobaldo I della Rovere, who became the Duke of Urbino in 1539, and was probably intended for the bridal chambers of his palace. A young woman looks frankly at the beholder. She is naked except for earrings, a bracelet, and a ring. Her body creates voluptuously flowing rhythms against the precisely rendered order of the Venetian interior. However, many critics see the image not primarily as an allegory of lust but of marital love. The myrtle tree and the roses allude not only to the goddess Venus but also to constant love. The dog symbolizes faithfulness. Composition. Titian has created a beautifully balanced composition dominated by two diagonals. One diagonal, from top left to bottom right, is formed by Venus. The other, from top right down to bottom left, leads through the two heads of the maids and the left hand of Venus. Together they create a dynamic cross-like composition. The figures in the background play an important role, counterbalancing Venus and helping create a sense of tension. Similarly, the dog on the right counterbalances the strong point of interest formed by Venus's face and Posey on the left. Compositional graphics. The edge of room divider and Venus's left hand lie on the central vertical. Venus's left nipple and the bottom of the cassone, bridal chest, are on the central horizontal. Light and dark. Venus's face stands out from the dark curtain in the background. The darkness of the curtain in the top left corner is balanced by the light tones of the sheet in the bottom right corner. Technique. Titian earned a reputation for extending the expressive effects of oil painting, especially in his late paintings, when he employed extremely loose brushwork. Here, however, the pictorial handling is one of precision and refinement. Titian uses thick paint to create forms. The broad areas of color are offset by crisp details. It is a technique that suits the tightly structured composition and the exact geometric perspective used to construct the picture space. Moreover, Titian has deployed a technique that befits the bold, forthright confidence of the subject. Flesh tones. Venus's pale, smooth flesh tones immediately catch the viewer's eye. The soft transitions from pearly white highlights to rose-colored shadow tones add to the sensuous allure of the body. The posy roses are associated with Venus, the goddess of love, and this posy of roses, with its strong tonal contrast, deep red color, and detailed rendition, also provides a strong point of interest. The color red is repeated in the mattress and in the maid's dress. Hair. Venus's chestnut tresses, defined in individual strands as they shimmer in the light, fall seductively over her shoulders. Together with the roses, which languidly drop from her hand, they add an erotic charge to the painting. Story. The identity of the nude figure has been debated for centuries. In contemporary correspondence, she is described as the nude woman, or woman reclining. The figure seems to have been referred to as Venus, the Roman goddess of love and beauty, only after the painting was moved from Urbino to Florence in the 17th century. Roses and the myrtle tree are traditional attributes of Venus, but the inclusion of Venus's son Cupid would have made the identification unequivocal. Instead, the setting, with maidservants in the background busying themselves with the subject's clothes, suggests the temporary nakedness of a mortal rather than the ideal nudity of a goddess. He faced Venus stares straight at the viewer, with a nonchalant, almost provocative, expression. Apparently unconcerned with her nudity, she seems to challenge, rather than be challenged by, her unseen beholder. In context. Reclining nudes early in his career, Titian worked as an assistant to Giorgione, and the Venus of Urbino seems to be based on Giorgione's Sleeping Venus, c. 1508-10. Giorgione's Venus lies in a landscape with her eyes closed. She seems romanticized, remote, and unattainable. Titian's, by contrast, is a sentient, flesh and blood, heroine. Paintings of nude reclining women were extremely popular in Venice in the 16th century. The Sleeping Venus Giorgione, 1508. Window. The window is the same as one in a drawing of the Duke's palace in Urbino. It suggests this painting was destined to be displayed in his palace. The myrtle tree on the sill symbolizes eternal commitment. Spaniel the dog, a traditional symbol of fidelity, implies that the painting is a story of conjugal love. However, dogs were also used by artists as symbols of lust. Two maids. The maids take clothes out of a bridal chest, cassone. Such chests were often painted with erotic scenes similar to this painting. Critics who see this painting as an allegory of marital love have suggested the maids are involved in their mistress's nuptial preparations. Jacopo Robusti Tintoretto. B. Venice, 1518. D. Venice, 1594. After Titian, Tintoretto was the most respected and prolific Venetian painter of Renaissance, but Verlitlius known office life. Born Jacopo Robusti, Tintoretto was nicknamed for his father's occupation from the Italian word tintor, meaning dyer. Tintoretto may have trained with Venetian artist Bonifacio Veronese, no relation to Paolo Veronese, and legend has it had he also studied with Titian, but was dismissed because of the master's jealousy of his talent. Tintoretto set up a workshop of his own sometime before 1539. But it was not until 1548 that he produced a major work in his distinctive style, The Miracle of St. Mark Freeing a Slave. His draftsmanship, seen vividly in his drawings, was perfected. By making wax models of the figures for his paintings and producing studies of them, from all angles and with different light sources. One of Tintoretto's hallmarks was dramatic foreshortening. Bold brushwork matched the striking poses. Tintoretto's work in the churches and scuole of Venice established his reputation as an alternative to Titian, and he had enormous influence, on El Greco in particular. His children, Domenico, Marco, and Marietta, helped in his workshop once it was well established. Lifeline. 1518. Born in Venice, son of a cloth dyer before 1539, sets up his own workshop. 1552-62 works in the Church of Madonna dell'Orto. 1562-66 paints a series of 4 works for the Scuola Grande di San Marco. Sea of scenes from the Bible for crutch and Scauda ds. Rocco, after 1588, paints Paradise for the Doge's Palace. 1594, dies aged 76. The Miracle of St. Mark Freeing a Slave. The use of foreshortening, contrast of light and shade, and closely observed figure painting give this picture a sense of drama and movement. 1548. Oil on canvas, 414 by 541 centimeters. Galleria dell'Accademia, Venice, Italy. Study of a male nude from behind. Tintoretto's drawings show even more energy and brilliance than Michelangelo's. C. 1577. Charcoal on paper, 35 x 25 centimeters. Hermitage, St. Petersburg, Russia. The Last Supper. Many of Tintoretto's later works were painted in collaboration with his assistants, but this one is undoubtedly his own work, his glorious swan song. It is a distinct break with the traditional portrayal of this subject. The dramatic depiction of Christ serving the Eucharist beneath the supernatural angels contrasts with the very earthly figures of the apostles. 1594, oil on canvas, 365 by 568 centimeters, S. Giorgio Maggiore, Venice, Italy. Closer look. Diagonal framework. The visionary quality of this Last Supper is heightened by the unconventional viewpoint, from above and to one side. The table forms a diagonal framework for the painting. Shining halos. The main light source in this painting is the blazing halo around the head of Christ, echoed in the auras around the apostles' heads. Christ's halo lights the whole scene, and highlights the figures of the angels above. The crucifixion of Christ. Tintoretto's massive crucifixion scene is teeming with movement, and depicts the raising of the cross rather than the conventional contemplative portrayal of the crucified Christ. 1565, oil on canvas, 5.36 x 12.24 m, Scuola Grande di San Rocco, Venice, Italy. Jacopo Bassano. Giorgione 1818, Bassano, 1692. Although he spent most of his life in Bassano, a village 65 kilometers northwest to Venice, where his father Francesco the Elder worked as a painter, Jacopo Bassano is considered part of the Venetian school. He studied with Bonifacio Veronese in Venice in the 1530s, but otherwise remained in his hometown all his life. Like his father, Bassano often placed biblical scenes in a rural setting, peopled with peasants and animals, anticipating the 17th century taste for genre scenes of everyday life. His knowledge of the work of Raphael, Parmigianino, and other Mannerists lifted his work far above that of a village artist. Bassano experimented with a more expressive approach to anatomy in his figure painting, and he developed a dramatic use of light and color which continued throughout his career. His four sons, Francesco the Younger, Giovanni Battista, Leandro, and Girolamo, were also painters. They assisted their father in his later years, and took over his workshop after his death. Adoration of the Magi. The unnatural postures of the figures in this rural setting of the Adoration are typical of Bassano mature style, as is the intensity of color created by the light falling on them. 1563-64, oil on canvas, 92 x 118 centimeters, Kunsthistorisches Museum, Vienna, Austria. The Adoration of the King/His is as much a portrayal of country people and animals as of the Adoration. The pageant of acutely observed figures leads to the Madonna. Cent 1540, oil on canvas, 183 x 235 cm, National Gallery of Scotland, Edinburgh, UK. In context. Holy Inquisition. In 1573, Veronese painted a Last Supper, set in contemporary Venice. He was called before the tribunal of the Holy Inquisition because he had included figures and ornaments that were not in the biblical account. 4 days later, he changed the title to Feast in the House of Levi, in which Jesus ate with tax collectors and sinners. Detail from Auto de Fe in the Plaza Mayor, Madrid, by Francisco Ricci, 1680. Paolo Veronese. B. Verona, 1528, D. Venice, 1588. Known by the nickname Veronese, after his native city of Verona, Paolo Cagliari became one of the most important members of the Venetian school. He absorbed some of the elements of Mannerism, and particularly the use of unusual perspectives and foreshortening, but his work is generally characterized by its dazzling use of color and light, expressing the magnificence of the time. Veronese trained in Verona. After a short period in Mantua, he Movetto Venezian 1553. He almost immediately started work on ceiling paintings in the Doge's palace, and was then commissioned to provide canvases for the Church of S. Sebastiano, a task that was to occupy him for about 10 years. Veronese's work was much in demand, especially the banquet paintings for which he was renowned, and his career culminated in a second series of works for the Doge's palace. Lifeline. 1528 born in Verona, 1553 moves to Venice, 1555-65 paints a series of works for the Church of S. Sebastiano, 1562-63 paints the marriage feast at Cana in the refectory of S. Giorgio Maggiore, 1575–82 commissioned to decorate the interior of the fire-damaged Doge's palace. 1585 paints the apotheosis of Venice for a ceiling in the Doge's palace. 1588 dies in Venice. The Triumph of Mordecai. This is part of the massive cycle of paintings in S. Sebastiano. The work's striking, worm's eye viewpoint is explained by its position on the ceiling of the nave. The mannerist portrayal of figures and horse adds to the drama. 1956, fresco, 900 by 370 centimeters, S. Sebastiano, Venice, Italy. Closer Iocc. Horse and groom. Veronese's eye for detail and love of ornamentation, seen here in the boot and the horse's hoof, add to the realism of his narrative cycles. The marriage feast at Cana, he banquet at which Christ turned water into wine, is depicted here in a Venetian setting, with classical architecture, guests in contemporary clothes, and Renaissance musicians all realistically portrayed. Veronese's approach to religious themes was generally celebratory, even light-hearted, rather than devotional. 1562–63, oil on canvas, 6.6 x 9.9 m, Louvre, Paris, France.